Alright, so let's talk about Mirage. Maybe you saw the other video I did before, but I'm currently rank 1 NA early in the season. Doesn't mean that much. Legendary division, but I got here purely through Mirage and purely through this one build that I'm currently running in this video. I'm going to talk to you guys about this, the theory, craft, the understanding of it. The reason I kind of want to do this video is I really don't think there's any great Mirages out there at the moment. I think that the Mesmer community is in kind of a weird place. Mirage has a terrible rap, and deservedly so, right? This is a horrible build. It's a build that I don't like. I think it drags Guild Wars 2 down as a spectator sport. I think it's too easy. I think it does too much passive damage. I think it has very, very high gains, even when you kind of just spam on it, right? I actually do think very carefully about my gameplay, as long as I'm, you know, not too many games deep in like a long spree or something. I think I am probably actually a lot better at this build than most people's instinct would think, because they think of me as just like this PvE guy. So don't expect to just net deck this build and immediately be like really, really godly and up at, you know, the highest echelons of the leaderboard straight away. It will take practice, and you need to understand things about kiting. You need to understand fundamentals of PvP. But I really do think I have the best Mirage builds in the game for this season, this current balance right now, by a long way. I don't actually think any other builds really even come that close to this one, and I'm going to talk to you guys about everything that I'm doing with it. This is a ranked build. It could even have some value in ATs, since ATs aren't that competitive, but let's roll in. So let's talk about just the state of Mirage a little bit. Mirage was very, very strong after the Mesmer well, it was kind of super strong when Path of Fire came out. Then there was the big Mesmer Phantasm clone rework, and it was just insane, okay? And then it had like 3 big nerfs in a row, and it was still very strong. We all used to run like Axe and stuff. It got to a point where most people transitioned over to Scepter. I still believe in Scepter. There's lots of reasons why Scepter's better. It's more range. There's more you can do with it just because it has that range. But one of the biggest things about Scepter, okay, is like your quality of life, evade, whatever, safety is on the 3 on this, which requires you to go into melee, absolutely puts extra damage on you, and is like widely telegraphed as well in kind of an ugly way. While Scepter, you can just pop this 2 very quickly. It's got very, very high pressure on it too. You can do it from kind of anywhere. And, you know, the ambushes and stuff are still very, very strong. Even on Axe, you're kind of projectile-oriented. I'd love if Axe wasn't projectile-oriented, because currently the Mirage build right now, all Mirage variants, whether you're Axe or Scepter, you're very projectile-heavy, right? And that's kind of one of your biggest counters. Maybe that should be left in place, to be honest, for that. But that would be a justification for Axe. But anyway, so lots of us moved over to Scepter, and it was still very strong. A couple of other nerfs came in a few months ago now, and most people then moved last season and a little bit before, started looking at this trait, Chaotic Interruption. Chaotic Interruption had even been used from way back when a lot of people were still on Axe, and before several of these nerfs. Some of the higher level Mesmers were playing this, and they were eking out certain 1v1s by using this. But it became a thing where everyone was playing CI. And CI was, especially with paired with the Mantra, it was like really noob friendly. You just kind of spam stuff out, the Amob and the Might and stuff was insane. But CI was just disabled a few weeks ago. And it seems to me that in that last season where CI was everywhere and everyone was playing it constantly, now that it's disabled, people just don't know what to do with Mirage. They're like, well, what's going on? I don't understand. How do we play it? But to me, it's always been simple. Bountiful Disillusionment. When CI was like all the rave, I played it a bit to understand it, but I never even really moved away from Bountiful Disillusionment. This is an insane GM. I don't believe in going illusions, which is what a lot of people do. They'll go dueling and illusions. Don't worry about that. I still think the Chaos variant is better. I'll win nearly every single one of my 1v1s against any illusions Mirage on Chaos with Bountiful Disillusionment. You just get so much more value out of this. It's insane. You know, an illusions guy can catch you unawares and can do a really nasty, nice Condi bomb in the right scenarios. But overall, on average, you're going to do better on this build. So yeah, I do agree with Chaos still. I just don't run CI, and I run Bountiful. So let's first of all go through my selections. And for every single one, I'll tell you why I've picked. So that's the idea of the lines, first of all. We're Mirage, mostly because of the Grandmaster Infinite Horizon. And then we are Chaos, because I still think it's stronger than Illusions. And we're Dueling, because of Deceptive Evasion is extremely strong, and so are the other ones. So anyway, First, I'm taking pistol offhand. For a long time, we would run torch. Some people like torch. They'll go like the 4 in stealth, and then they'll pop the 5 as the prestige ends, and you get lots of burn or whatever. That's not a very strong combo at the high levels. People will just cleanse it very quickly. You go quite deep. I appreciate feeling unsafe with stealth, but as a Mesmer, especially as a Mirage, right, with phase retreat, blink, and double jaunt, it's just about knowing the map. It's about knowing, okay, I'm on Kylo. This is the thing I can jaunt up to, and then I can climb down and jaunt back up, and then I can climb down and phase retreat back up, and then I climb down and blink back up. You have more than enough kite potential and resustain to be able to handle stuff without stealth, okay? And if you're dying, really it's just that you didn't leave early enough. It's that you weren't thinking about respawns. It's that you weren't watching kills happening elsewhere on the map as you died. And all that stuff you can just fix by leaving earlier, by kiting sooner. And so I don't believe in torch. I really don't. It's not as high value as pistol, which is an epic... One of the biggest problems with this build, and most people don't understand about Mirage, is it's got terrible chase, okay? If somebody's leaving and, you know, the 1v1, they're disengaging, your projectiles are slow. Your infinite horizons, your ambushes, they're slow. They're not very good. Pistol at least gives you magic bullet to try and stun someone as they disengage from 1200 range away, and then maybe you can do something. But even then, it's kind of hard to follow up with a lot of damage, right? But pistol at least gives you that. Also, just the bleeds are insane. So we're definitely pistol, and then when you're pistol, it's going to be duelist deception. This is crazy as a trait. You don't need chaotic interruption. You still have billions of interrupts, right? With your chaos storms and your diverts and stuff. If you can roll through multiple magic bullets before the weapon swap, you're laughing. That doesn't happen very often. But it's so strong. This unloads just so much bleed. It's ridiculous. One of the other downsides of the Desperate Decoy is even if you were like some god that was counting the ICD of this and you really knew it very, very, very well, there's just times where it interrupts your heal skill and it just does nasty stuff. Quite often, we get conditioned as players to want to heal when we're hitting the 50% mark around about there, and that's right when this is ready to interrupt you. Not very good. And the Phantasms of Fury is okay because it triggers sharper images more regularly, but only your Phantasms, which really only means the Duelist gets it and the Warlocks get it. But that's not a big deal. Honestly, this is the better trait to go. So this is sharper images. Can I just say, obviously we're not specifically picking this. Well, we are for dueling. This is one of your biggest pressure traits. It's insanely strong. And it's pretty much the reason why we run the Wanderer Amulet. This is condition damage and expertise, but precision. High precision on there. Really, really, really badass with its synergy for sharper images. For a long time, I tried Sage, and I tried working with Sage, and on previous metas, Sage worked. But Sage just kind of doesn't have the counter pressure. You just kind of get killed. Anyone that's good will nearly always when I lose a 1v1, I feel like, damn, it's because I was Sage, right? So I don't believe in Sage whatsoever anymore. The pressure difference between Sage and Wanderer is crazy, and it's because of sharper images. This is not Phantasms inflict bleeding on crits, it's everything does. Your clones do too, and your Scepter clones will be randomly autoing, and your Staff clones will be randomly autoing and bouncing, right? So it's multiple packets. You want them to be putting that 7 second of bleed out. This is a crazy trait. Anyway, the next decision we make, you don't worry about Fence's Finesse because you're not on a sword. It really comes down to, do you want evasion on the mirror? Reflect, after you dodge by gaining a free mirror every 10 seconds. And you pretty much proc this every 10 seconds because you have enough evades, right? Or do you want blinding dissipation, which is Cry of Frustration becomes a blind? So, for a long time I used Cry of Frustration. This is really nice against like warriors when they go for a full counter or a greatsword burst or something like that. What you'll be able to do is just snag them with it, and then they won't really get too much damage. It's also good against thieves who maybe sword 2 into you, and you're anticipating a steal in a second, and you can pop your F2. But the play style, first of all, for Bountiful Disillusionment, kind of changes Cry of Frustration because of Vigor, which we'll look at when we get to that line. So this is a bit less regular than you'd expect. But the other justification why I actually think the projectile reflection is just much better. This will save you from like hollows. This will save you from soul beasts. This will save you from a lot of stuff. Even, you know, in a matchup where you don't think this would help much, like a warrior, it will like reflect a blade trail and stuff every now and then. Think of it in terms of animations, right? What blinding dissipation can do is affect one animation realistically every 25 seconds. Because that's when we can Cry of Frustration. We can kind of hit one, maybe a couple, right? Every 25 seconds. However, Evasive Mirror comes up every 10 seconds. So twice as much. And it's not just one animation. It's a full 2-second duration where any projectiles coming at you are being reflected, right? So the entirety of a point-blank shot plus an attempted stealth out from a soul beast, or his rapid fire, or, you know, an entire photon blitz plus particle accelerator and static discharge from a hollow or something. And it comes up more regularly. So if you just think in terms of averages and number of animations that you're affecting, Evasive Mirror is just better. And I felt it. It feels stronger. I don't even swap to counter. I never use this anymore. I just don't touch it because the cooldown is much longer. Now, if this went to a 25-second cooldown, and I think there's so many nerfs that should happen for this build, to be honest, then this becomes a really exciting kind of choice because it's like, okay, do you want a mirror every 25 seconds or do you want blind every 25 seconds? It's kind of a decision to do with control. You can't control the mirror as well as you can control Cry of Frustration. And even then, you know, when you do a comparison like that, you're still going to see the value in the mirror in a big way. So anyway, you got that. And then finally, our GM, Deceptive Evasion. There's not much to say here. It's just the strongest. You want lots of clone generation so that every time you dodge, it creates a clone, which then Infinite Horizon ambushes, okay? And you want this generation because you do shatter a lot on this build. The main skill cap with this build, and again, let me reiterate what I said at the start. I'm actually pretty good at this build, all right? The main thing is, a lot of Mirages suck because they shatter too much, because they're thinking mesmery things and they think shatter, giving them value. But they're shattering at weird times, which 99% of the time, if you shatter, you're killing your clones in the middle of an Infinite Horizon, and then you're, like, killing your own damage, and you're a bad Mesmer. Shattering makes you a bad Mesmer, in general. So then, as you're, like, getting better on this build, you stop shattering so much. But eventually, you'll be good enough to shatter perfectly between animations, and knowing that you've got a counter spell coming up, so you're going to quickly refresh, and knowing that 2 warlocks are about to die, so they're going to quickly refresh. If you do this, a counter spell, you summon 2, and then when you dodge roll, you create the 3rd, and then they all ambush together, right? It's as simple as that. So before the counter spell, you could shatter anything you like for free, as long as it wasn't in the middle of an animation. Same for the warlocks, right? So you get used to this kind of stuff. And a lot of that is because of Deceptive Evasion. Deceptive Evasion allows you fuel to utilize these, which are really important. So there you go. That's Dueling, and that's the decisions we make there. So looking at Chaos, we don't really worry about this. So first of all, there's an interesting decision here. Illusionary Defense is rubbish. Don't worry about it. But here, do we want to take Master of Manipulations, which drops our manipulation recharge and gives us super speed on the back of them? Or do we want Descent into Madness, which is Chaos Storm on heal skill and full damage, but you don't really worry about that. So you'll notice I'm actually a manipulations build. We'll do the manipulations discussion in a second. So I've played with this, and this is awesome. This is such an insane skill. Blink is mental, all right? And having super speed off the back of Blink feels really good. And being able to spam it more regularly feels really good. This is one of the most power swingy skills in the game, Arcane Thievery. And to be able to cast it more regularly is really good. This, to be able to cast more regularly, when you are traded for manipulations and you double cast this skill, my God, you really, really do feel like this was, you know, back to back. The cooldown comes up and just in time for another one. You really feel the power of this trait and you're like, I'm really happy I took this. Because if you didn't have it, you wouldn't have been able to snowball so hard, right? But I do believe in Descent into Madness. So double Chaos Storm is just ridiculous. This is going to make more sense when we look at my runes and things in a second. But boons are crazy. In fact, they'll make sense when we look at the Grandmaster Minor in a second. Boons are crazy. Aegis Refresh is crazy. And so is Chaos Armor, right? Or Aura, as it's now called. So, when we drop the Chaos Storm from our heal, for example, we know that we can phase retreat out. It doesn't actually matter what weapon set we're in. We can get that aura, okay? You can phase retreat it from your staff, or you can jaunt inside your Chaos Storm if you are if you're on Scepter Pistol. You can combo through it as well, like you can put an extra Confuse on the back of Magic Bullet, an extra Condi on the back of the Duelist, and your other stuff. It's very, very, very strong. Eventually, once you learn this and you realize it's essentially every other heal skill will give you your Chaos Storm. You can use this to interrupt reses on bodies. Don't forget, Chaos Storm applies poison, so it's just incredible to put in situations like that. To cover your allies, it's all AoE boons. It's not just on you. It's ridiculous. This is very, very, very strong, and you won't go wrong with it. Next as well, we take Chaotic Dampening. So this is Chaos Armor, grants protection, and Staff and Trident skills gain reduced recharge. So reduced Staff recharge is just good, more Chaos Storms and so on. But also, yeah, our Chaos Armor gives us protection So now the double Chaos Storm's even better, because I can heal skill. This problem probably won't trigger because of the ICD. So we'll do this one here. I can heal skill, and then I can jaunt to give my phase retreat, or jaunt to give myself protection. And I can stack it up if I want as well. I mean, this is not a valuable way of spending the cooldowns. But keeping prot on yourself is really huge too. There's very little protection on the build if you don't take chaotic dampening. So doubling up with Descent into Madness is just huge. It's really, really, really nice. So that's actually my recommendation. This new trait I was really interested in at the time of the patch coming out, but I don't really think it's too necessary. And this is just like a PvE trait. Don't worry about it. There's no playmaking potential on this trait, so don't worry about it. For PvP, take things that give you playmaking potential. Okay. So now let's look at this Grandmaster Minus. So a huge part of the build is about this. Most players now, they don't even think about this this trait. They're just so out of touch. Chaotic Persistence, Outgoing Boon, and Condi Duration. So this is Expertise and Concentration. Increase for every boon on us. And that's 2% for every single one, okay? So if I can get just 5 boons on myself, I've got another 10% boon duration and 10% condi duration, alright? But you got to think about this too. The more boons I put on myself, the longer they last, allowing me to put more boons on myself. Chaotic Persistence is crazy, crazy, crazy important. More boons is, like, so strong. So that leads me to my runes. This is undisputably the best rune you can run for Mirage by a long way. No adventure, none of this other stuff. Leadership. You have more than enough condition damage to win pretty much any matchup that is of relevance, okay? I mean, if you're going against a Water Weaver or a Scrapper, then that's a situation where you rotate away from it. Everything else in the game will melt to you eventually, unless it's a hilariously over-teched Spellbreaker build with too much resistance on it and it can't do anything, right? So Leadership is just massive boon duration. It's the most boon duration you can get on a rune set, but also it's got extra to all stats, which pushes the boon duration even more. You see, we're at 27%. 0.39 because of those extra stats we're getting. Those extra stats does it for expertise too, and condition damage and vitality and toughness and everything you care about, okay? So leadership is really potent. And then you have the T6 on it, which is convert 3 conditions into boons when you use an elite skill. So our elite skill is Jaunt. One of the trickiest things to be a good Mirage on this build is you kind of have to reconfigure in your mind how you think about Jaunt. A lot of Mirages will use Jaunt to move, right? They'll be like, oh, I'm rushing fire on the start because I'm a 1v1 builds, and they'll like double Jaunt towards you. You don't want to do that, okay? You want to hold Jaunt and only Jaunt once you see like 4 conditions on you, or 3 if it's really desperate. There's like a high Condi stack of poison because of a Condi thief or something. And what you'll see is you just boon the hell out of yourself. This gives you boons you otherwise don't have, like Alacrity, which builds into Chaotic Persistence even further, okay? So, and it's just massive cleanse. This is how you win against Condi thieves, and there's a lot of like Condi heavy stuff that will prey on you at the moment. Most Mirages do not have the cleanse they should have. That's like their Achilles heel. And, you know, Condi Thief is one of the more aggressive things, especially if it's on sword. It can kind of dip in and out. It can really mess you up. If it manages to get some plasma from you, it's very, very challenging. So you got to get cleanse on this build. You have to. Leadership is epic. It's so good. And if you're using Jaunt correctly, you're laughing. What it means is you kind of have to learn how to phase your retreat, right? So if you're fighting a power matchup and you start losing it, and you've got to kite off to the side just for a second, you want to phase retreat up a wall or something, you're on Legacy, you're on a Kylo or something, you want to phase retreat, not Jaunt, because you want to hold that Jaunt cooldown for when you get -1 against a ton of condition pressure or something. And then you can just flip that all back. You want to get value out of that. Once you really learn that about Jaunt, you're laughing. It's fantastic. You'll also notice here that the leadership cooldown of 45 seconds, it's not too long for Jaunt's 30-second recharge, so you can't exactly easily count it. But more often than not, when you Jaunt, you will be, you'll kind of know when you play the build enough. You'll know when your Condi cleanse is coming up there. So yeah, that's why leadership. It's all about the boon duration, guys, because the boon duration means all your Condis are lingering really hard through Chaotic Persistence. And now think about the double Chaos Storm with all of the boon duration. And now we get to our Grandmaster, Bountiful Disillusionment, which is all about boons as well, okay? So, like, as we shatter through, we get boons. Boons, 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 boons everywhere. And Arcane Thievery can give us a ton of other boons too. And they're all lasting so long. So, so let's talk about Bountiful Disillusionment. A lot of Mirages don't rate this that highly, okay? Well, why is that? Because like classically one of the cool things about this was stab and shatter. It's just like, oh, I can, you know, stab stomp anyone I like now. I can safe stomp. But you're a Mirage, so you can kind of dodge in the middle of a stomp or a res anyway. And like the stab element isn't really so relevant anymore. I mean, when you get very good at it, and I'm certainly at the level where I nearly always mind rack to stomp or res if I can, so that then once it's over I can use my dodge roll as an offensive tool, right, for some kind of big ambush, because dodge roll is just so much on this build, right? You've got to conserve it. You're going to use it defensively, but also it's a ton of your damage, so anyway you can instead just mind rack for a bit of stability to take a stomp. That is a nice asset, which is not the best of assets, right, on Mirage. So a lot of Mesmers don't think of it too much. But also look at the other ones. Fury, you're going to have infinite Fury anyway because of your staff ambush. Every time you proc this, as you play the game, you'll just notice, right, especially on heavy boon duration, your Fury goes insane, all right? You don't need the Fury. The F3, it's kind of irrelevant. So you can use that just for interrupts. Or a little bit of stab as well, in the same way as Mind Rack. As for the might on Mind Rack, well, it's nice, but it's only 3 might. You'll often be at 25 might, but again, because of your ambush, or because you've just stolen 25 might from Arcane Thievery, or someone else has helped bump you up a little bit. So, you know, that doesn't really mean too much. The regeneration from Distortion, I mean, that looks pretty good, right? But you also have pretty high regeneration time anyway, because of Metaphysical Rejuvenation, and then also Renewing Oasis down here in Mirage. And we haven't got to this line just yet, but the point stands. There's a ton of regeneration, so you don't care about it too much. The one that's really epic, though, is Vigor. Okay, so Vigor, I think a lot of Mesmers underestimate how much Vigor they have. They have a lot less than they think that they do. So Vigor's mental because, obviously, dodging means so much. You want perma-Vigor if you can have perma-Vigor. You want it. Always, always, always. Vigor, 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 Vigor. But you run out. You do tend to run out. You don't get that much. So if you take Bountiful, you get a whopping 10 seconds there. That's 10 seconds before Chaotic Persistence Augmentation and stuff, right? You get a whopping 10 seconds of Vigor. And not only is this allowing you to dodge more and do damage more, but also, because we're a Mirage, and we have this miner here, Nomad's Endurance, it also gives us 150 condition damage, okay? So this like buffs our damage up to a higher level as well, and having Vigor is like insane. So I do like this trait, but the way that you play with it is pretty much on the engage, all right? You throw out a little Cry of Frustration to get the Vigor rolling, and then your other boons will start stacking on top of it, and you want that Vigor to stay there. You try and steal a bit of Vigor in a mirror matchup with your Arcane Thievery or whatnot, and you kind of try and roll your Vigor in that way, basically, right? Or also, bleeds are getting thrown around all the time, so your leadership room will be giving you lots of Vigor. This is Vigor that if you ran other variants, you wouldn't have so much of. And this just turbocharges your defense and your offense at the same time. Whenever I choose to Cry of Frustration for Vigor, like on the opening, or when I find that safe space in the middle of a fight, I tend to also throw a Mind Rack out. Like, it's not minor, okay? So let's have a look. My condition damage right now is 1086. I'm only going to Mind Rack, okay? Which is going to give me might and a little bit of Vigor on there, right? Ready? I'm just going to Mind Rack. We go from 1086 to 1326, all right? While that Vigor's on there. So kind of just bumping these out. These are big, big stat differences. And knowing how to maintain these and utilize these two shatters as you play is very, very, very fun and will squeeze you out a lot of stuff. Add in some like little tech where, you know, you're in a mirror or something and you line of sight someone's warlocks by, you know, running towards them and immediately turning back, and then you get yours for free. These are all things that you can learn, and I think mean that Mirage is still very, 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 very busted. Speaking of Mirage itself, let's go down to the last line now here. We have Renewing Oasis for lots of regeneration, but also this means that regeneration we have diminishes our incoming condition pressure. This is nowhere near enough damage to be valuable, and this isn't relevant considering we have this and a couple of, deceptions isn't necessarily enough to give us a lot of fuel here anyway. So Renewing Oasis, you're going to be taking. Here, I did take Desert Distortion for a long time. Desert Distortion is amazing because when you shatter a mirror, it's weakness. So that helps a lot. That's a cover condi. That's really good against hollows and warriors and things. And then also you can kind of just trail through, right? So what you can do is on this trait, let me go to a golem here. I thought there were golems here. Yeah, there are. They're all the way over here. What you can do on this trait is summon your stuff. Like so, right? And then once you have them summoned, you can get ready for a next batch, right? Like this. I've got my warlocks up. I'll create my mirrors. And now look, I've got 3 clones. And all I have to do is with W, A, and D here, walk into a mirror, he's dead already, walk into a mirror, walk into... And I'm like invulnerable basically during that period of time doing insane damage. If you set it up, it's very strong. That's before we even talk about the weakness. So it's a cool trait. It is nice. However, in general, I found that the protection is nicer because of its synergies from Chaos, and also protection is just very, very, very strong. So I like to go protection and leave it there. Then finally, Infinite Horizon, because, you know, big damage. These two just basically... This doesn't have enough pressure or boon rip potential to really justify. This sounds like the cooler idea for the theme of this build, you know, with all the boon stuff. But it's just not regular enough. It's only 1 boon that you rip and all that. Infinite Horizon is just crazy damage. One of the most important things the devs need to look at in the game at the moment. So there you go. That's traits. Now, swinging back through... let me talk about the Achilles heel of Mirage again. It's conditions. Conditions will screw Mirages a lot of the time. So what cleanse do we have? We've got big cleanse on Jaunt, which we can cast twice. One of those will proc leadership. We've got Arcane Thievery. This is a really scary skill, okay? And it takes a lot of practice to not get ruined by this. Most people don't know how to use Arcane Thievery. They just think, oh, there's lots of boons, I'll use it. Or they think, oh, I need to use it for stability. Like, these are all outdated, outmoded, like, stupid, like, idiotic things to think about Arcane Thievery. Arcane Thievery should be very clearly used for taking, if you're in a power matchup, for taking massive stacks of might and using them for yourself, but also, you know, to reduce the threat of that. Okay, so when you're against Hollow, when you're against Warrior particularly, when you're against DH and so on, you're looking for might. But against most other matchups and places in the game, it's your Condi cleanse. And you should only Arcane Thievery after you see a dodge roll, alright? Wait for a dodge. Treat this like if you were a thief using steel, okay? Do not let them dodge Arcane Thievery or line of sight it, because this is one of your biggest cleanses in the game, and you will lose it if you waste it at the wrong moment, okay? It's unblockable. Great time to get Warriors and stuff is when they're in shield block, or Hollows when they put their wall up, or DHs when they go into F3. These are all really, really good opportunities for you. But as a cleanse mechanic, it's a tricky one to deal with. And when you're in a mirror match especially, so you've got to really think about... you know, whatever mirrors he might have on the floor, and if he's about to screw you up with a double or a triple dodge or something like that. But yeah, so Arcane Thievery is some of our cleanse, but I'm telling you guys, that's still not enough, not really, to squeeze by, not consistently for a long period of time. A lot of Mirages run Doom, right, because you're actually a little bit light on Poison. There's some on Chaos Storm, but it's RNG, it's not that good. And Poison's amazing, right? But as good as Doom is for Poison... Go cleansing. In fact, go double cleansing. You won't regret it. When you realize that weapon swap... Basically, both sets here are pretty good pressure, okay? This is like more of a finisher set, to be honest. And this is more of a pressure set. But either way, you're kind of at liberty to weapon swap as and when you need to. And depending on the range you're at, if you're very close in melee, you can unload incredible damage with massive Infinite Horizons on here. It's not so good from range. But because of that... You nearly always have weapon swap ready for some kind of cleanse. And when simply weapon swapping ripped like 12 poison off of you, or 12 burning off of you or something, you're not going to regret it, right? You want to know in both directions, no matter what set you're on as you swap, cleansing will be there for you. So I go double cleansing and I go double energy. It doesn't get better than that. If I ever try and sub off and mess with Doom and do other things, I always, always, always end up regretting it. And besides, in terms of the poison... Sometimes you're getting poisoned, and then Arcane Thievery is your poison. So you got that. So, yeah, that's everything that I run. That's how I set up Mirage. Last but not least, though, we do have... Oh, by the way, the heal skill is definitely Mirage Mirror. I know that Signet of the Ether looks kind of cool because you spam out so many clones. It's like you get incremental health. You can't beat all the Vigor that you get for this. I actually very aggressively heal very early. Because if you do that with a Cry of Frustration, this is a lot of your upcoming Vigor. It will sort of roll you through. But also you get the Chaos Storm that you can combo out of and stuff. I use this very aggressively a lot of the time. Get used to knowing about the mirror that's underneath. It's a free ambush. This is just crazy. There's so much value you could get from this. And the healing on it is like mental. I have tried a variant where you're spamming Mirror, by the way, with manipulation trait, and you run like adventure runes. So you just basically keep spamming this, and it gives you dodges, and it gives you dodges, and it gives you dodges. But this is the best way to play it, believe me. Blink, I don't necessarily disagree with Illusionary Ambush. This skill's really cool. But it's also, the RNG on it's really weird, and it's screwed me too many times. Blink is reliable. Blink will save your life 1 billion times. So Blink, you know, it's a stun break. It's excellent. So I run Blink. Thievery, if you're really not feeling it and you're against a lot of Condi, Mantra of Resolve's excellent. And then you got a final slot, okay? So what most Mirages will do with this final slot is they'll run something to help them with pressure. So during the CI days, that meant filling this up with Mantra. So you spammed it out. So more days, so more interrupts, more. Or Mirages would run Illusionary Ambush here. The Blink Illusionary Ambush combo with Jaunts can clear the entire map really fast, you know? That feels amazing to catch up to someone before they decap with these. So that feels very good. A lot of them will run Signet of Midnight. You might even call like this the classic. This gives you extra expertise, guys. And look at Disengage. It's a stun break. There's blind on it. Midnight's good. Don't get me wrong. I really like Midnight. I don't think that the stealth is actually that good in terms of duration. But you will win over all of these players on average with your carry potential running Illusion of Life. Like I said, I've been playing Illusion of Life a lot. I've been thinking about it and like what its place in the game is and whether it really meshes with this role and so on. And I believe it does. So this is a 1v1 build, right? It's a build that likes to win the 1v1s and it likes to be outnumbered even, right? Alone and keeping people distracted on neutral nodes and things. And in all those situations, Illusion of Life isn't necessarily that good. But as soon as we're talking about ranked games where it's not great communication, okay? Like, even the duo queues that I talked about in that other video where I duoed a lot, you know, you're not even necessarily in formal comms with people for that kind of stuff, right? When people even you up into a 2v2 scenario, you want to be able to assist as well as possible. You've got some hard CC, you've got boon uptime for them, you've got massive pressure, but you want that extra thing too. And this allows you to play with the downstate in an incredible way. I mean, you already can. You can distort res, you can distort stomp, you can dodge stomp, you can dodge res, you can stab stomp, you can stab res. Well, now you can Illusion of Life too. And this means from range, you can pretty much straight away pick someone back up for enough time to get a counter kill and rally that person. There's massive playmaking potential here on Illusion of Life, and it's excellent for when those 2v2s manifest. Not only that, but I want to talk about Mirage as well, and like one of its downsides. Like, Mirage as busted as it is, and as much as I kind of hate it for the game, I kind of don't actually think it's that good for like ATs. So one of the things you can be sure in high-level automated tournaments is quite often you'll be against a firebrand. One of the things that completely invalidates Mirage, as opposed to other side noders when it gets to a team fight, is firebrand. So if you're a warrior, you side node, you win your 1v1, or no one aggresses you, whatever, you go to mids, to have impact in the mid fight, and you're a warrior, you can press like 2 buttons and kill everyone, right? Because warrior is busted and loaded with flat power pressure. What this class is busted and loaded about is very projectile-oriented and is comedy-oriented. So let's think about Firebrand. Firebrand sees a Mirage come in. Well, with his regular weapon skills, he can do something about that. He can hold a shield 5, utilize that correctly, and he's all right. Then the Firebrand's got tomes, right? So he's got 2 really powerful ones you could think of for a second. Let's just say, for argument's sake, he goes F2. Well, in F2... he's got his skill 5 that can immediately just transfer and delete all of your conditions. Not just delete them, but turn them into assets for his team. You can use the skill 2 as well. So he goes 5, 2. He can drop the 4 down as well. And that 5 and 2, like, they delete you. This is like a huge period of time now that you've basically been 0 impact because you just can't do very much. So then he drops out of F2. He's got his regular weapon skills back up. Maybe he gets another shield 5 or something out. You're still invalidated. Then he goes into his other tome. So for F3, he's got not just a resistance field, but he can juggle the resistance field with a reflect bubble. The reflect bubble just ruins you. You can't do any damage with this. You can't do any damage with any of these. None of your clones can. This is most of your damage. Yeah, you've got a bit of a laser beam. Your pistol 4's not going to do anything. Your pistol 5's not going to do anything. The warlocks are laser beams, but hardly do anything. The chaos storms are okay, but it's more about that little bit of daze, and they're really good in the smaller fights. This isn't going to matter to a Firebrand. Firebrand invalidates you, okay? So basically, here's the thing. Quite often, and Tempest as well, a well-built cleanse Tempest can wreck you as well. Not that you see those much in unranked. In ranked queues as opposed to ATs. So what you need as a Mirage is when you're in that situation that you've won your 1v1, you need to be able to have impact somewhere else. You need to be able to do something. Illusion of Life is that something. You push into Clock Tower, an ally on your team dies, you know, all your damage is getting stalled, so they get the first kill. You Illusion of Life him, and he bodies the opponent, okay? You could get, like, double reses, triple reses. This gives you that immediate snap impact. I've had several moments where I'll, like, win my 1v1, and instead of staying to full cap, I'll just quickly, like, blink, because you've got massive gap close, blink across, and then Illusion of Life. Look, and I've just triggered an Illusion of Life all the way over there when I was all the way over there a second ago, right? You get the Illusion of Life, and you can just wander back to your node and cap it now, knowing your team's going to win that fight because it's giving you that much of a stall out. This thing, people don't even die a second time if they disengage and barrier themselves, or various mechanics like rebound and things across the game that stop the downside on this. It's an extremely strong skill. So that's why it's so strong. Now, what the naysayers are going to say is, well, look, no, hold on, though. Eventually, you're going to be in high-rated games. And in high-rated games, your Mirage will lose, that has a selfless skill, will lose its 1v1 to the Mirage with the selfish skill. All right? So if I'm against someone on Midnight, he has that extra, you know, 5% to 20% win chance against me, right? Because his pressure is higher, he's got that extra disengage, and I don't, and so on. So now you're losing your 1v1, and now if you've lost the 1v1 as a side note, that's a huge, huge misplay. That's a big mistake for you to have made. And I think that that's all perfectly fair. The reality is, quite often though, the number of times you're in a really evenly matched 1v1 in on this build in ranked that is so slim of a margin you needed that third utility, it's better to not take the risk for it anyway and rotate somewhere else. And if you're going to be rotating somewhere else, you've got a massive tool to be able to accomplish that. It's a very few games where you're forced into a horrendous matchup. You always have the power to choose a different matchup, go to the other side point somewhere else, unless the other player is really excellent at marking you, but you have excellent mobility to pull away from that. And I think that if you're playing for such slim margins, you're probably not strategizing with the broader game well enough. It's more often that Illusion of Life has insane carry potential than it is you squeezed out a win you wouldn't have otherwise because you were on Signet of Midnight or you were on Illusionary Ambush. Does that make sense? That the majority of games, there'll be more big plays for Illusion of Life than there will be big plays in slim 1v1s with Signet. Okay? So that's why I really believe in this. And, you know, maybe you can even say that the proof is in the pudding there. You can get some huge win sprees with this. And, you know, most of the games that I played recently anyway, I just kind of pushed far and just won my 1v1s or kited outnumbered and Illusion of Life people, and you kind of win. Illusion of Life is a bit weird in terms of pushing far or close, by the way. It's more of a skill for going close. It's more of a backnode skill, because when you go close, there's a higher chance you'll be left alone there, and you will get up to have impact at mid and get value out of it straight away. If you push far, you're going to be in a 1v1, and by the time your 1v1 ends, mid might have also ended, and your opportunity for Illusion of Life might have also ended. So you can more regularly get plays out of Illusion of Life, probably as a backnoder. But I push far and just kind of win my way forward anyway. I just feel like you can have a bigger impact in those scary games where you're not sure the capabilities of your allies by going far. So yeah, there you go. That's the build. I hope I've justified every little bit, and you can see the logic of why every little bit is tuned as it is. And yeah, this is what I consider to be the best Mirage, and I hope you guys have fun, and I hope to see this nerfed pretty soon as well, frankly. Cheers, guys. Thanks very much for watching, and I will see you next time.